Hello, my name is Voya and welcome to my deep guide. Well, today we are checking out the in-depth review of the Mobiscribe Wave, the black and white edition. So before I dig in, this is my own personal device, so I purchased it, pre-ordered it, received it, so that I can actually bring you the independent and objective review of a device like this. So this is something that I frequently do, but that of course costs money. So if you want to actually make it possible for me to expand even further and buy even more of these devices to bring reviews to you guys so that you can make an informed buying decision, then please do like, subscribe, comment down in the video as well, because that helps the video and channel as well. And also check out the mydeepguide.com/shop, where you will find my daily organizer, which is a hyperlinked PDF file that satisfies all of your yearly, quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily organizing or journaling needs. And if you're interested to figure out more about it, you can also check out the playlist in the description below for MDO to get all of the info about it and see if that's something for you or not. And now onwards with the in-depth review of the Mobiscribe Wave. So the Mobiscribe Wave is a device that should suit people who need to take notes while on the go. So we should kind of focus that even in their marketing blurb, they are focusing that this is a digital e-ink notebook for people who need to take notes. So it can do reader kind of stuff, but the Mobiscribe Wave's accent, much like with the Origin, is on actually taking notes. And if Origin is anything to kind of go from, it was an excellent little note taker and it did exactly what you wanted it to. It is a waterproof. This is something that we shall be testing. And the new thing with the Wave is that it's 7.8 inch in size, so it's much bigger. Well, not much, but an inch bigger than the Origin. It has Bluetooth and speakers. Its availability is on the site, and the black and white version is available for $285. And what you get in it is one Mobiscribe Wave, one stylus, 3 replacement tips, and a tip remover tool. So Mobiscribe Wave is a charming little fellow, and they're just kind of evolving. It's a natural step forward from the Origin with a very, very stylish, nice looking blue, because it's a Wave, so they're embracing that whole thing. And I really do like how it looks like. I do really like the fact that they have maintained the gray frame around the screen that is trying to match the grayness of the screen itself. This is something that I prefer quite a lot, and I loved how it was done on the Origin. It is done maybe not as well, but very, very close and quite good also on the Wave, so that you don't have that distraction of a black frame or a pure white frame. The gray frame is the one that you should definitely go for, because it creates the least amount of contrast between the content of the screen and the surrounding area, and that in turn creates a much nicer reading and writing and clearer reading and writing experience, and causes your eyes actually to strain quite a bit less, because you don't have this big silhouette to deal with. The front of the screen on the Wave is not flush, same like it was not on the Origin either. So you do have a little bezel here and indentation, but it is quite small, and as such it doesn't really interfere with the interaction with the user interface. So for example, these icons here, I can easily interact with them and very precisely interact with them, even though they are right there in the corners. That's something that can potentially be a problem if you have a taller indentation, but not so on the Wave. So that is quite a nice thing to see. At the bottom, we just have a discrete MobiScribe logo. On the top you have the built-in speaker right there, and here is the notification LED that will tell you when it's charging, what it's doing, etc. On the back is, as I said, this very nice darkish, kind of very saturated blue color to indicate that it is a waterproof device. The thing that I really do like with the Wave is this kind of molding here that was added on both sides, and it's not just for style. This is actually something that they've added so that it's more comfortable to hold when reading. And indeed, if you do hold the device like this to the sides so that you're not holding them by the corner, that indentation is quite nice and quite comfortable, provides for a nice comfort level of holding the device. However, if you are holding the device like this so that the corner is getting into the palm here, it's not exactly the most comfortable reading experience, because there is some weight. It's not really heavy, but there is some weight to the Wave, especially when you compare it to the Origin, and it has quite a bit of weight on the upper corners. It's not just on the bottom, and therefore it is far more comfortable to actually hold it here. In fact, when I switch the device over, yeah, definitely, it looks like that the weight distribution is top heavy, and maybe that is what I'm actually reacting to, because when I hold it like this, I feel quite a bit of a tug over here from the top. When I turn it around, there is still some, but actually considerably less. Yes. Yeah, definitely. Now when I'm holding it, it's so much less. So it looks like they've actually put the battery up here in the top, and that's not an ergonomically good decision to do, because it's a top heavy device, and when you hold it like this, you do definitely feel it in the palm of your hand. As far as the layout goes, it's very similar to the Origin, so you still have the dedicated Frontlight button that toggles it on and off. Extremely handy, and I really like that they continued that tradition onto the Wave. You have the power button to the side of it, nothing on the left side, nothing on the right side, and on the bottom you have your USB-C, and I believe that there is no microphone capability here. The build quality, I think, is rather nice, especially for the price. It actually looks nicely finished and nicely kind of done for an all plastic device, that is. The screen reflectivity is rather good. It's not the best that I've seen, so it's a little bit more reflective than I would have liked to have seen. Overall, I do like the design. I don't like the ergonomics because of it being top heavy, which affects the reading positions here. So that is a kind of a mixed bag, but overall design, I think that it looks very, very nice. And I think that it's a good balance. It's a little bit of a big device when you compare it to other 7.8 inch devices. We have the Wave at the bottom, then we have the Supernote here on top of it. You can just see how much of a smaller footprint the Supernote actually is, and then you put the Nova Air on top, and you can see that it's actually even more narrower than the Supernote, but slightly taller. As far as thickness goes, well, Supernote and Wave are pretty much neck and neck, but Nova Air is considerably thinner than the MobiScribe Wave. So you can actually see this little sandwich here. And overall, from the design of these, yeah, Nova Air 1, even though it is still kind of the older one, it is similar in design. And when it launched, it was pricier, but you know, even as such, as design-wise, it just feels and looks a lot more modern and is a lot more ergonomically kind of adequate. And it's just a really, really well put together device. So when you compare it to the Wave, that's something that you have to take into consideration. The Supernote A a 6X is considerably more expensive than the Wave, so it's not exactly in the same ballpark, and its design is much older than the Wave, but it's still, I find it to be a lot more elegant and a lot more ergonomically well put together. And if you're focusing for a device that is supposed to be for note taking on the go, then the size does matter. And for me, that's one of the things that I'm reacting to, that the footprint of the Wave is just a little bit too big in all fronts. It's just a bit too heavy, just a bit too wide, too thick, too high for something that is like on the go, because we already have something like this, which is a lot sleeker and a lot more portable. As far as technical specifications go, as I mentioned, it's a 7.8-inch e-ink screen. It doesn't mention which generation of the screen it is using. It is using the now standard quad-core Cortex A53 at 1.5 gigahertz, even though I think that it turbos up to 1.8 gigahertz, the A53. But yeah, let's say that it's 1.5 gigahertz. System RAMs 4 gigabytes, internal storage 64 gigabytes, non-expandable because it is waterproof. So now you no longer have the the SD card slot, but you do have USB-C, which should be possible maybe to actually support the USB-C SD card converter, but it does not support. From what I've tested, I couldn't get my USB-C hub to actually recognize USB drives from it. So that, for example, it didn't have enough power to power it. What's interesting is that it's actually coming underneath with an Android 12, they say. It's using the standard resolution of 1872 by 1404 at 300 ppi. Of course, this is the black and white version, so monochromatic display with touch capacitive and Wacom EMR capabilities of the screen. Comes with a 2,500 milliamp battery, Wi-Fi of both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz standards, and a Bluetooth 5.2. And what they haven't listed here is that it also has an internal speaker, which is also a new thing from the previous origin. As far as the screen quality in image quality actually goes, it's actually quite okay because it's at 300 ppi. So the image and the text clarity is really nice, which is something that we've come to expect from devices like this. And despite it actually having a plastic cover on top, which is clearly plastic, this is, don't open. This doesn't really have such a negative effect on the overall image quality. You can see that even on a very small kind of font like this one, which is really tiny. I mean, compared to a finger, it's super tiny, but you can see that the crispness of the screen is exceptionally good. And the bold text is nice, and the thin normal text, even though thinner, it's actually quite nice. As far as the image quality for more graphics rich type of content, you can see that it is actually quite nice as well. So it provides for again a very nice balance between image crispness and text clarity as well. Responsiveness of the device and the screen is satisfactory, but the overall contrast is a little bit on the stronger side of things. You do have contrast control of the overall device, so you can increase it to explode it, and you can lower it down here. So the gradient here is going to show you how the contrast is actually working and which shades are displayed in what way. So then I can immediately transfer the transform the perceived image quality of the device. And now something that was really high contrasty and really kind of intense, with a simple push of a button, you kind of make it into a much more pleasant experience. This will of course make images appear much nicer because you have a greater range of grayscales, but it will also have the effect that the text is going to pop a little bit less. So it's up to you to actually decide what it is that you prefer. So if you're looking for a really nice image display, then low contrast is actually what you're looking for. If you're looking for text to pop out and to have text clarity, then you need to increase that contrast a little bit until the text actually pops out. But even at lowest contrast, in a very difficult kind of a situation where you have a lot of things actually intertwining here, different grayscales, blacks and white text on top of it, it still is able to display it quite nicely, and the crispness is really good. It doesn't have proper dithering, so you will see color banding like here, clear color banding here, and there unfortunately isn't an option to avoid that at all. So that is something that you will definitely have to deal with, but it's not the worst color banding that I've seen on a device, so it is something that is quite acceptable, I would say. The Frontlight is easily accessible, so these are the lighting conditions. I tried to make it dark, and I'm just getting the light from the window here a little bit and a little bit from the screen, and that's probably going to cause some flickering because of the screen up there. But you have access to the Frontlight via the top button, or you can simply swipe down and turn the Frontlight on software-wise as well. So the Frontlight looks fairly okay, and this is the lowest intensity here, so it's still turned on, but it's at a very low intensity, which is a nice thing to see that you have that control. You also have the color control here as a balance between cold on the left and warm on the right. So for now I'm going to keep it somewhere in the middle, and I'm going to start to increase the intensity of the Frontlight so that you can see how it goes. And you can see that it's extremely steppy, and already now at like maybe a third of the way in, the intensity is quite high. So that means that once I actually get to half, this is really bright, and I don't see why any front-lit device, e-ink device, would need to go brighter than this. And it actually goes all the way up to here, which is exceptionally bright. Now, the thing that's actually good about this, let's lower it down a bit so it's not exploded in the camera because it's super intense. So there we go, the camera can show it now. So the good thing is that the Frontlight seems to be very uniform, and it is very pleasant to the eye. So if we switch to the blue shade, in my unit you only have this lower left corner that actually exhibits a little bit of a color bleed. When we go to the fully warm, then you have that same things, a little bit on the lower left corner, but not so much. Everything else is very nice and uniform. I think that it's completely unnecessary that it goes all the way to these levels. Nobody's ever gonna use it or need it at these levels. It would be far more better and usable if it went like from 0 to 70% of intensity that we have now, but that you actually distribute that range, or even 0 to 50, but you distribute that range into the 32 levels so that you have more finer control in the lower aspect, in the lower range of the intensity, because that is something that you might want to have finer control over in very dark conditions. But overall, the Frontlight on the Mobiscribe Wave is Very uniform, very pleasant to look at, and of a very nice quality. The pen that you get with Mobiscribe Wave is the exact same pen that we had with the Origin as well. So it is an all plastic kind of a pen. It's Stadler style, whoops. So it's hexagonal, which makes it very easy to kind of use. It's nice and thin and kind of on the longer side of things, and it's a very nice balance of the pen itself. It's very light, so if you're looking for a pen that has a luxury feel or something like that, this is not the pen that's going to do that. But for writing, for sketching, and for things like that, this is an exceptionally good pen. Even though it doesn't look like it and it might not feel like it, it's actually quite good in the hand, and the plastic is feeling nice. Yes, it has some flex, of course it does, because it's long and it's plastic and it's thin, so of course it's going to have some flex. So it depends what kind of a writing style you have, but it has normal exchangeable nibs in the front. So this is the regular standard that we are used to. So that means that you can use different nibs that you might prefer, and it's actually easy to find replacement nibs when they spend. And on the end you have the eraser button there. There is no button anywhere here, so you've got a simple affair: eraser on the back, nib on the replaceable nib on the top, and that's that. So as a pen, I think that it works very, very nicely. And one of the things that I really loved about this pen and the Mobiscribe is the responsiveness of the pressure sensitivity. Like all of the devices will tell you that they have this, that they have the 4096 levels of pressure sensitivity, and that's a nice thing, but not all of them are actually able to utilize that or to offer you the easy ability to have direct control over those levels. And for example, if I take the Kindle Scribe pen, it's and it's a really good pen. It's actually a little bit more difficult to have that gradual control of increasing the pressure sensitivity. Do you see how much easier it is for me to have more control over the pressure sensitivity when I go over this one? And especially if I take a Books pen, this is the Pen 2 Pro, then it's even worse. It's much, much more difficult to control. This pen is much, much better than it looks like, so do not underestimate it. It's a very, very good pen that comes as default with the Mobiscribe Wave. Battery life on the Mobiscribe Wave is better than it was on the Origin. When I performed my standardized tests, which is I run the device for reading, I flip the pages manually every 20 seconds for an hour, and I do that with the Frontlight set at 30%, and then I set it to off to actually compare how the Frontlight actually affects the battery life. And then I do the same thing with the writing, with continuously writing for 1 hour. So this is a standardized test that I do across all of the devices so that we can have an equal comparison point between the devices. And Mobiscribe Wave actually performs quite well as far as in both tests. It's nothing exceptional, but perfectly acceptable. So as a reader, it spends around 5% per hour with the Frontlight on at 30%, and that means that you will get roughly around 20 hours of reading time under those conditions with the Wi-Fi on, of course, per charge. But when you turn the Frontlight all the way off, then that consumption falls down to around 2% per hour, which should give you around 50 hours of reading time per charge, which is excellent. The writing performance is of course less because writing is much more CPU intensive, so there's more power consumption there, but it's still pretty good because it actually spends roughly the same amount of energy between Frontlight turned at 25% when writing and turned off. The Frontlight is then not the major consumer, it's the CPU because it's actually doing all of the writing and all of that kind of stuff. Then it performs at around 10% per hour of battery is spent while writing consistently. So that means that you can expect around 10 hours of consistent writing per charge on the Mobiscribe Wave, which is pretty good. All right, so let's first cover the reader functionalities, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it's primarily not a reader. It can do reader things, but it has the same limitations that Mobiscribe Origin had. And if you're interested in all of the details, functionalities, and limitations and things that I've talked about, it's the exact same app that the Mobiscribe Wave is using. So you can check back on my Mobiscribe Origin reviews and update follow-up videos so that you can actually be up to speed and to know what to expect and what the limitations are, etc. Overall, the device is a little bit on a slowish side of things, as you can see, generally speaking, and that definitely translates into the overall performance of the reader itself. Mobiscribe Wave comes by default by a separate EPUB ebook reader app that is pre-installed and is on the device, and that has a certain set of functionalities. And when you want to read PDFs, it will ask you to download and install a default PDF reader app, and that one has its own user interface, its own functionalities, and everything like that. So right out of the bat, it's not a favorable position to be in for a reader to have an entirely different set of functionalities, user interface limitations, and all of that, just depending on which format of of a document that you choose to open. This is the exact same PDF reader app that we've had from before, so it has the same set of functionalities. You can annotate your documents if you turn it on, so you can annotate it normally, which is kind of cool. So you have your couple of pens that you can choose from. You can also use text mark here, which is for selecting the text, I believe. Yep. So you can mark your text with the pen, which is really good to actually highlight, basically. You can choose what you're gonna do. Are you gonna highlight it? Are you gonna do strike through? Or are you going to underline it? Which is also nice because you can then just choose to underline the text, and then it underlines it, even though this is a really, really small format, but you can see how it actually works. Then you have zoom area here, and basically in a setting like this, I would actually just choose a zoom region to something like this, then yes, confirm. And by default, we have this option of locking the visible area. Why is that important? Well, let's say that I am like this. So this increases the usability of a document like this for me quite considerably. And the zoom lock is really cool because that means that when you flip to another page, that you will have the same zoom locked state persistent across the pages. So that is a very nice thing to actually have on a device like this. Now, while we're here, you can see that it's fairly snappy when it comes to actually going through pages here with quite a bit of content. So this is not a light PDF file, not at all. It has tons of images, a lot of small text, a lot of different formats here. So it definitely is quite a bit of a snappy device. Previously, the problem with the PDF reader was not the speed itself, because you can see that you can actually quite nicely zoom in. Very, very nice performance for the PDF reader here. So you can zoom in up to a point that was the maximum of zoom in. It can't zoom in more, but you don't have to use the region zoom to actually find the size that you want. You can simply pinch to zoom, and you can fine-tune it quite easily because it is a very, very responsive function here like this, and then it's locked, and then you just keep it like this, which is very, very nice. If you want to reset it, you can just zoom out, or you also have the option here to reset down back to 100. Then we have some eraser options here. That's just a general eraser. Then you have erase the whole page. This function I'm not going to use. This is actually rotating the content of the page. So this is not an orientation of the device. The device cannot be rotated. It doesn't have that ability. It just has a cheat ability here, which would rotate the content, and that tends to break documents that have multiple hyperlinks and things like that. So if you choose, for example, to open up MDO and you rotate the content, it's going to break all of the hyperlinks, effectively breaking the document. The same thing goes for here. You're able to insert notebook pages inside of a document, which is really, really good and handy. However, it doesn't retain the hyperlinks, and again, it will break the hyperlink functionality of a document. So your table of contents in the front of a document, for a document like this, would break, or in the case of MDO, it would break completely. You do have word search here on the top, which is kind of nice. You have page overview here, which you can also check through bookmarks. In this case, I do not have any bookmarks, but if I bookmark this page, I could just go here, search for bookmarks, and then you see bookmarks there. Very nice and easy. And you can also flip where the toolbar will be. So overall, the functionality of the PDF Reader app has improved over time, and the stability has improved considerably. It's not still a 100% rock solid app, but it is far, far better than what it used to be a year ago or a year and a half ago. So that is a nice thing to see. Why do I give it some negative points? Well, because of the page rotation and insert page, that it actually breaks the functionalities of documents. And plus, when you start doing this on larger documents, it introduces a lot of instability. It doesn't have an option to just fit a portion of the screen, and then you go next page, then displays the next portion, then next page, and then flips to the next page and then shows this portion. Something that we have on super notebooks and other devices then where it's actually incredibly useful. That's unfortunately not something that we have on this one. And on a device of a smaller format, such as the 7.8 inch, that is a very, very important functionality to have, and Mobiscribe Wave unfortunately doesn't have it. One other thing that I want to cover is this mode here, read mode. You have like auto fit. I would caution against it because the performance of it is absolutely dreadful. It just hogs the entire device completely, up to a point where you don't know if it registered a touch or it didn't, and you see what is happening here. So this is not crashed. He's still kind of processing stuff, and it's simply not a function that works properly. So, well, at this point, no, it still didn't crash. And even when it does, you will see that it's actually formatting to the maximum of the screen panel, which is covered by the plastic cover here. So the content is going outside of the visible area to the user. And when you swipe to the next page, here we go, we have to wait for it to get the next page and then reformat it and then kind of find the scale and then display the scale, I guess. Yeah, every other page is gonna take quite a bit of time. My recommendation would be just steer clear of that full screen fit mode, because as you can see, the performance is absolutely dreadful, inconsistent, and really, really bad. So just avoid it. And instead, what you can do is simply use the excellent pinch to zoom functionality, and you will have, first of all, your content will fit the screen, you will have control over it, and it will also be persistent, and the speed is going to be far, far faster, and responsiveness is going to be normal. So just avoid that. feature completely. As far as a library organization of books, well, you can make subfolders here in your books, but basically the books thing is just showing you the two main folders, and I don't know if you have an option to kind of manage, and nope, I couldn't really find an option to add folders that are going to be looked at directly into the books. But basically what I'm talking about is if you actually go into your files here in the file manager, come on, yes, the books that you saw, it's going to by default look into books and into download. So when you actually transfer files into your MobiScribe Wave or Origin, it doesn't matter, it's the same, where you want to put them is actually in your books folder. So you want to go into the books folder and then you're going to transfer there. And if you do it like that, the books will, or the documents will appear in the books here automatically. To wrap things up with the reader capabilities, I'm just going to show you how MDO works on the MobiScribe Wave. So it works quite well. Let's zoom it in so that it's filling in the content nicely, something like this. So it's quite easy to interact with the hyperlinks. Even though it's quite small, it's actually really easy and very, very precise to get into all of this. And the responsiveness of the device is quite nice, I would say. So I haven't experienced any crashes or anything with it so far, and the pinch to zoom I think is a very, very welcome feature here, although you have to be kind of precise to kind of manage it, and I do find it to be a little bit finicky when you're trying to get to a nicer, a very specific area. So I do find myself actually using on MDO, I would use the region zoom simply because it's much faster and more precise that way. And then I can just simply go here and add my entry like I would normally. And you can see that it's yeah, pretty nice and fast. You need to be in reader mode for it to actually register the hyperlinks. So as soon as you are in writing mode, it will no longer register these presses. So be sure that you're in the reader mode so that you can actually interact with these things as you normally would. Another thing to keep in mind is that you should never use the page rotation and inserting a new page in MDO, because it will effectively break the document as it will break the hyperlink functionalities. That is not normal operation. Normally PDF readers are able to insert pages without breaking the hyperlink functionalities, but unfortunately the default PDF reader does that. So yeah, that's that pretty much. One other thing that I would mention is that you have the ability to install from Mobi Store. You can install Kindle and Kobo books. I find that the Kindle app works pretty bad, if I'm honest. And Kobo works a lot better. So the problem with the Kindle app is this. You can see that it has this sliding thing, and that's a default Kindle app thing, and this is not the animations turned on. The animations are actually turned off, and there is no way for me to yeah, kind of avoid this, and this to me is incredibly distracting, ugly, and not something that I would use if I have any kind of a choice. I would not want to use that under any circumstances. Kobo, on the other hand, is a very different story. It's a much more pleasant reading experience, and it's a lot faster. The only thing that you have to kind of keep in mind is you can see that it's so much cleaner. The only thing that you keep in mind is that you go into the settings and you make sure that the page transition is set from slide to none. By default it's on slide, and you can set it to none, and then the performance is actually quite nice. It's not the fastest, but it's really nice to kind of use. And you have the ability to change the font size, and the device is actually quite okay as far as the reflowing of it goes. So this is something that I do like, and overall the difference between using a Kobo app or a Kindle app is a night and day as far as I'm considered on the Mobiscribe Wave. And finally, I just want to shortly show the EPUBs, how they work. So it's an entirely different app. You have a bookmark in the upper corner, you have your progress down here. I think that you can long press and select by default there. You can press in the middle to get the formatting, progress, bookmark, rotation, and some other options as well, so that you can see, define the chapter area. You can, you can do these other adjustments. And you also have the ability to annotate. Let me just see here. So you just need to... The file name is too long to support handwriting. Please rename. That's weird. All right. Okay. So maybe like this. Is this better? Okay, so now it's renamed. So I should be able to do handwriting. Okay, let's go somewhere forward. Okay, yeah, and then you have the ability to write on this one. And when you do, you also have the option to choose between pens, and your thickness is over here. So it's a little bit counterintuitive because it shows you a pencil and a thickness, and you're not able to choose the thickness from there. You actually have to go over here to choose it. You know, it is what it is, but it definitely is something that that works. That's a G. Let's erase it. Quite nicely. There we go. So you can annotate and you can mark up your EPUBs as well, and you have that similar type of icons functionality here. So we do have some connection in icons, at least, between the PDF and the EPUB apps, but still it's a completely different app and it just functions differently. So yeah, that's definitely something to keep in mind. How it handles the addition of an annotation when you change the format, well, it just tells you, hey, you have something here. So then you tap on it and then you take a look at it, and then you restore font settings so that you can see how it was done in the original font setting, because otherwise it's not going to be able to display. So this is a nice way that it was actually solved, the whole problem of formatting, and maybe that's something that Kindle can look into for their scribe, because it sure as heck beats the sticky notes that they've implemented, which is just so terrible. Ink to pen distance on the Mobiscribe Wave is pretty much standard for a majority of the devices that have a Frontlight. So it's at around 1 millimeter mark. So that's neither good nor bad. It's right down smack in the middle. Screen resistance is something that was actually quite interesting for me to see, that it, when I was writing on it and when I was kind of testing it and things like that, it felt a little bit more slippery than the Mobiscribe Origin, but I was thinking like, well, that doesn't make sense because, you know, it's Mobiscribe Wave, but then again, maybe different technology, things like that. And I was surprised to see that the difference between Mobiscribe Origin's screen surface resistance and the Mobiscribe Wave is so big, because as you can see in the list or in the chart, MobiScribe Origin was at 42.61% of roughness of the printing paper or a sheet of paper, while the MobiScribe Wave is all the way down at 19.39% of the screen surface roughness of the printing paper or a sheet of paper. So basically it's twice as more slippery than the MobiScribe Origin. Who knew? But that's why the tests are there. And another surprise also came in the form of not such a good surprise, like the slipperiness was not such a good surprise, and neither do we have a good surprise with the D.E.S.T.A test and writing latency, especially when compared to the MobiScribe Origin. Now, I just want to preface this by saying that MobiScribe Wave measured at 43.33 milliseconds of writing latency. This is not bad at all. This is really, really good, and this is like a really good standard. So anything underneath 50 milliseconds is a standard, it's a modern thing, and it's perfectly fine. So from that standpoint, if you're not comparing it to MobiScribe Origin or any other device, MobiScribe Wave has very good writing latency. Please do keep that in mind. However, it doesn't exist in a vacuum, and we do have to compare it to its predecessor, the MobiScribe Origin, and that one was actually all the way up at 37.11 milliseconds, which is not a small difference. This is something that is actually quite a bit of a difference between the two, and it's quite surprising because newer should be better, right? Not always. Note-taking is the central focus of the MobiScribe platform, and MobiScribe Wave is not an exception to that. And immediately when you actually go to notes, you will first see that the first option is to take notes, because that's the whole point of the device. And it's a very nicely organized overall menu. So you can choose to create landscape notebook, portrait notebook. You can create folders to organize your notebooks and subfolders. You can also just create a note directly from there. You can search your handwritten notes, so this is the automatically, you can just search through the content of your handwritten notes. And you have the MobiShare, which is a fantastic platform, and if you don't know how it works and what it does, it's basically real-time interactive sharing between other users of MobiScribe, so that what you are writing appears immediately on another person's device in the same session, which is a very, very nice thing to see. If you would like to see more about it, just take a search on mydeepguide for MobiShare and you will find a video that actually shows that. Then we have preview, import notes, manage all, bookmark, backup all, and deleted files. So quite a good and comprehensive organization of the notebooks themselves. When you create a notebook, it will automatically get you in there so that it can get you started really, really quickly. One thing that would be nice is to be able to actually set a default template, and maybe that's possible to do, so that your default template is this. Now we also have the ability to choose a cover from predetermined designs, and you are able to actually load custom designs for your covers, which is fantastic. And ultimately, you also can upload and use custom templates for your notebooks, which is also really, really good. So let's say I want to create a notebook that looks like this, and I go OK. And there you go. So that's my notebook. In the extra or hamburger notes, you will find the options to rename your note. You can send it to email. You can convert it as an export it. You can save it. You can restore it from a backup. You get information about it. You can add additional settings. You can search the handwriting within the notes, and you can choose the OCR language conversion. The other languages are, so he's going to load up. So you can choose, and you can just kind of see from this list all of the languages that are available. I'm not going to list them all, but I am going to scroll through them so that you can pause and then see if the language that you are interested in is there. But suffice to say, you have quite a large collection of languages to choose from, and of course you can download those packages and then quickly switch between them. You can add tags, so you can bookmark pages. This is your notebook management, where you can insert page after, page before, copy page, OCR the whole thing, or delete a page. So basically page management. You have your undo, redo, screen refresh, and full screen toggle. Okay, so those are the upper menu shortcuts, and here we have our first and last page, or page selection. On the left hand side we have our pens. So we have pencil, we have an ink brush or fountain pen, and we have a brush itself. Each one, when you select it, you will have the attributes for the brush at the bottom, so you can choose a color. You also have the thickness to choose from. You have your presets, and you have this whole slider, which goes a little bit beyond the maximum range that you can see, and it goes usually down to the minimum that is listed there. You can also add presets to a different pen, so that you can have preset pen with a different thickness and different color, and then that pen. So let's add another pen here. That's going to be my fountain pen, and that one is going to be of a slightly bigger thickness, and let's just create it, and pop, and it's going to appear here as your preset. Then you can easily delete the any of the additional pens, so you can have a very nice and easy management of preset brushes on the side. The eraser functions like the stroke eraser, area eraser, eraser itself like an eraser brush, and erase the entire page. Lasso tool is just a lasso tool. You can insert shapes. From the shapes, you can choose a rectangle, square, rectangle, circle, triangle, line, and that will be using this color and this thickness. So basically just a very kind of easy way of adding shapes. So let's make a circle here just to kind of show how it works, and it's extremely responsive, so you can create easily ellipses, circles, and things like that. There was a click. Wait, there. Yeah, they have implemented it. So you do get an indication, and it will snap into a perfect circle. So let's see if it does the same for the square. Yep, it just gives you an indication. Hey, this is the area for the perfect square. Very, very cool. The triangle, I guess, for an equal edged triangle, should do the thing. Equal sides triangle at least. No, that would have been nice. And the lines, they just work like this, and then you can go like there. As far as the brushes go, so this is my pencil brush. So this is my pencil brush. This is the ink fountain brush, which is pressure sensitive. And here, this is my brush. And it's very much so pressure sensitive. As you can see, you can go from super thin, extremely gradually increase the thickness into a lot more. You can just select the area here, and this one is to recognize, and then you choose what you want to do with your OCR recognition, so you can modify it. This one is going to automatically recognize and just insert as a text what it recognized. So there we go, and OCR recognition is local on Mobiscribe. So here I can insert or text replace. So text replace is going to delete this content and insert a text instead of it. Insert is just going to insert. So let's recognize this, works like that. And here the undo doesn't work. So that's most definitely a bug that. So can I delete this? That's a big bug. You can't do anything to this. Can I delete the whole page? Nope, let's just test the other one since we're testing this. I love how responsive the selection tool is. So this one should be automatically recognize and insert and replace. That's a big bug, and there you go. All right, so, and you can't delete this. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Can I select it? I was doing something wrong. You can't erase it. You have to select it and then delete it. I apologize, not a bug. And then you have the insert option, which is basically you can insert text, you can insert images, and you can insert tables. So when you tap on here to insert text, you'll get your text field and you can type your text in here. And we can just, that was not entirely correct, but let's just quickly test out and see, can we do the, can we actually hook up a keyboard to it? There we go, that's the one. So now we're pairing with the keyboard. Yes, pair. All right, so now that I have that, I can quickly test out and see my unnamed note. And if I go, wow, that disappeared. So it's very buggy. The software is really, really buggy. But this is my keyboard working on, not quarking, that was my typo, working on the Mobiscribe Wave, so that you can actually type in and insert content like this, theoretically, because I tapped on it and it works. And this is the major issue that I have with Wave. And when you actually check with reviews, you will see that people generally say, hey, great device, but very clunky and very buggy. So there we go, we crashed. Currently, software has quite a bit of issues. So you can insert an image and you can insert a table as well. And then you also have layers, and I believe that you can have up to standard 5 layers. Yep, 5 layers there. And then you can reorganize them. And can you rename them? No, you cannot rename them. So that's also a thing that you don't have. So what is there is actually okay, but the potential is there, right? However, the whole thing is very, very clunky at the moment, and it would really need quite a bit more work to actually polish all of these things to get it to work properly. So let's do OCR recognition of this section here, and let's see how it recognizes it and how long it takes for a small little section here for it to recognize. And remember, this is localized, so you don't need to be online or anything. This is just the device itself doing it, and that's why it takes a little bit longer time. So writing on the Mobiscribe Wave is a very pleasant experience. While it is not a paper-like experience, it is a very pleasant one indeed. So everything except Mobiscribed worked perfectly. The search outside is not going to search through your notebooks, it's just going to search through the names of your notebooks. All right, my bad. I was expecting that this was actually implemented, that it would work, because it's been a long time that it's worked like this and it's not implemented. So correction on my part, I apologize about that. I definitely made a mistake there, but yeah, that's how that search function goes. So overall, I think that the notebook experience has a lot of potential, but it is in a quite a buggy state. But overall, this is a device that is extremely and exceptionally well suited for note-taking. It's being advertised as such, and it, I think, definitely delivers on that. Well, no, it can deliver on that once all the bugs are fixed. Let's put it like that. So those are the basic functionalities of the Mobiscribe Wave. Now, one other important element here is also the calendar, because it's very nicely organized and it is a interactive type of a calendar. So you can, for example, go into the day, and here you will see, like, you can create written memos. Directly here, you can just handwrite your memo for the day. And you can also create an event, or you can create a note. So if you create an event, then it's going to say, okay, that's your typical like Google Calendar stuff. And you can check the repetitions as well, which is so all of these standard things that you would normally have. Or you can also create a dedicated notebook. And let's say this is my vertical notebook. So it opens it up. Again, it would be so nice if you could actually choose a default template. Maybe you can, maybe I'm just dumb, but this would be my daily notebook. And then you can normally fill it out like any other notebook. So the benefit of that is that you can, once that's done, then you have your notebook here. Your event could be created elsewhere. And when you get out, then you can see that you have actually a memo and that you have a note for that day. So that's something that's actually quite useful, and it's super nice and easy to organize. And the calendar itself, you can have it in a landscape format, which I think is really nice, and it lends itself to very nicely to actually be in a landscape format for something like that. You can start a week on Sunday or Monday. You can use a weekly calendar. You can back up your calendar, and then you can import your calendar from the backup itself. And the weekly view looks like this. If you have a Monday start and if you have a Sunday start, then it looks naturally like this. So yeah, it's fairly comprehensive. It's easy to go from week to week, and then you can go into monthly calendar, and then you go between months and things like that. So it's a very nice overview, and it just complements the portable companion type of functionality and idea. And I think that even as just even if it had only notes and the calendar as it is right now, I think that would be plenty for a device like this. It's just honestly just a nice bonus that it can have books as well, and that you can load up other apps, such as you can have Kindle and Kobo from the Mobi store. Now I've tried getting like Audible, Drive, File Manager, and Spotify by sideloading APKs, but that's like a mixed bag. Some of them will work, some of them will not. Since you don't have Google Play enabled here, anything that depends on a Google Play verification process will not work. So Google Drive doesn't work, Spotify doesn't work, but then on the other hand, File Manager, which is a free kind of free-floating app, it doesn't depend on Google Play, works normally, and it actually opens up normally. And you can also see that Audible, even though I haven't logged in, it opens up normally, and then it would, I assume, work normally as well. So it's entirely possible to customize this and expand the functionality of MobiScribe Wave even further. But that's not what the priority of the device is, for me at least. I think it's nice that you can do these things, but it's really not a make it or break it thing for me. For me, it's the functionality of the notes and that calendar. So for me, the priority would be to really iron out those notes, the functionality of notes, so that you get rid of most of the important bugs, that you nail that functionality so that everything works fine, so that you can have maybe a default template. Because if you're going to have a device that's focusing on one thing as its main thing, you gotta make sure that that main thing is as ironed out as freaking possible. And that's not the case here. So that, I think, is my main beef with current state of the MobiScribe Wave, especially because it's the same type, exact same type of functionalities and operations that we've had for quite some time now, well over a year on MobiScribe Origin. So it's not as if they didn't have enough time to iron it out, but it is what it is at the moment, and that's the realistic situation. You can also take a screenshot, and because it's a speaker, it has like a media player, but then you have this kind of weird stuff going around, which is like alarm sound and alarm volume, while you don't have an alarm app or ability to use it as an alarm. So yeah, it's not really a fully fledged, it's very clunky. The OS and all of that, I think it's a little bit too clunky, and I get it. This is a relatively cheapish type of a device for a 7.8-inch e-note taking device, but it's not really that cheap as $285. I mean, it's not something that you would call like, oh, it's so cheap that I can look the other way because of these things. I really can't. So I think that those things should have been more ironed out for the release of the MobiScribe Wave, but it is what it is. And now that leaves me with one last final test that I need to do so that we can actually see and test out that one main extra functionality, which is the wave aspect of it. All right, I sincerely hope that I did most of the tests before this one. And this actually goes against everything that, every instinct that I have. And even the device goes like, zzz, I don't wanna go, no. So yes, I am going to submerge the device into the water. I'm going to see if it can operate while it's underwater, if it can do some functionalities. And then I'm going to take it out of the water and see how that works. I got my kitchen towel papers here on the side. So here we go. And let's see, you know, take some guesses. Is it going to float or not? Let's say that's going to be our first guess. Float or not? Come on. Place your bets, place your bets, place your bets. All right. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay. It's kind of floating. Oh, good Lord, that's weird. All right, so now we are definitely submerged. So does the capacitive thing touch? Does touch work? Does the device work? Well, yeah, you can fire up the light, but the capacitive thing does not work at all. But the device is turning on and turning off. I'm not going to submerge the pen because it doesn't say that the pen is submersive. So now let's get it off. It blinked weirdly. Okay. There we go. Books, notes. All right, so let's open up some document here, and then let's read about ethic origins and development underwater. Second submersive feature or attempt. It's kind of disappointing that the capacitive thing doesn't work, but it's really cool that it indeed is, or seems to be, waterproof. Except that I don't think it liked the last one. There we go, it's getting there. It's weird. Okay, so let's see. It's very confused. I guess it's interpreting the drops, water drops, in a weird way. All right, so one last test just for me. I want to see how it looks like with... Come on, dude. With the front light turned all the way on in the water. Let's see. Whoosh. Isn't this weird that you have this glowing thing underwater? This is really cool because then you can just like turn it around and then scrub it and wash it nicely, and then whoa, glows MobiScribe Wave. This is properly sweet, and I can do this all day long. But there's no point in doing it. So yes, it obviously is waterproof, which is a really cool thing to see. So let's wipe it off, take this water away, and yeah, see how it works after the drying off. Actually, I'm not going to cut any frames. Maybe some people would say like, hey, what did you do? How did you dry it off? I just used wet paper towels to wipe it off. Just kind of wash it, obviously without the detergent, right? So there we go. It dries off quite nicely as well. So that's good. And does it power on? Yes, it does. Does it interact with my touch input? Yes, it does. Perfectly normally. Can I write on it as I would normally? Let's open up a notebook. And writing still works. Of course, my handwriting is terrible because it's all in my hand, but this is a big A+ for the waterproof aspect of the MobiScribe Wave. Pretty freaking cool. All right, so now it's conclusion time for the MobiScribe Wave. And as usual, let's start with the cons. The first one for me would be that weight balance is really top heavy. It looks like the battery is just up here, and you can definitely feel that when you're holding the device. The second thing is that these screen bezel edge, you can maybe even kind of hear it. I can do it here near the microphone. That's sharp. And that's not the case on the MobiScribe Origin. And this is something that really, really annoyed me when I was doing the 1 hour writing battery tests time 2. So 2 hours of writing. I kept kind of grating my palm against this sharp edge. And I don't think that that's okay. Not at all. And while we're talking about the ergonomics, I think that the size is overall too big for a 7.8-inch portable e-reader, because as I've shown, I mean, yeah, compared to the Supernote, for example, and yes, the thickness is the same, but the overall footprint is way, way less. And when you compare it to the Nova Air, then it's like even bigger difference because of that thinness and the narrowness and everything like that. So yeah, it's a bit clunky and a bit chunky actually for a device that's supposed to be portable, on the go, e-note taking device. Writing latency on the MobiScribe Wave is actually slower than its predecessor, the MobiScribe Origin, and the writing surface is quite significantly more slippery than it was on the MobiScribe Origin. The biggest problem is that the notebook, which is supposed to be the central and focal point of this device, is buggy, and it's quite buggy. Sometimes I've had templates not rendering entirely, just a half a page. I would exit a notebook and some of the strokes remain on top of the user interface and things like that. It's just all over the place. All right, let's get on to the pros of the MobiScribe Wave. Excellent pen bundled with the tablet. Excellent note-taking capabilities and functionalities when they work and when they don't bug out. It has excellent OCR handwriting recognition, albeit a little bit slow, but it is slow because it's localized and it's just being done on the device. It's not sending out data to any cloud or any server. Nope. It's all yours, and you can actually do OCR offline. It's waterproof. Now, I feel forced to say that that's a pro because it's exciting. You can submerge the device and yay, it's waterproof. Why did this device need to be waterproof exactly? I really don't know. Frontlight is very nice and uniform, and it has a nice range, albeit it's a little bit more on the high intensity range, so there's no need to go that high. It's maybe possible to just cut it down to like 50% and have a nicer sensitivity between that intensity range, so that would be a nice thing to see. Image quality of the device and the screen is actually quite crisp, and the addition of having the contrast and image control options makes it a very, very flexible and very usable platform for variety of documents, books, or even comics. The Reader app, while still not perfect, very far away from perfect, has been significantly improved over time, and especially when you compare it from the first release of Mobiscribe Origin, it has been improved dramatically, and it's actually quite a useful and manageable experience. Conclusion summary for the Mobiscribe Wave. I love the Mobiscribe Origin. I really do. I love that device quite a lot, and I think it's an excellent device. Warts and all, like, it's not perfect by any means, but it just kind of struck a really good balance to kind of fit that very, very specific type of a thing, which is like a pocket notebook for writing, right? So that really worked, and it delivered there. But as a reader, it wasn't really that good because it's too small and limited capabilities, etc., etc. When they announced the Wave, I was confused, to be quite honest, because first of all, I didn't see anything new that they've announced in their promo materials. It was just like a 7.8-inch Mobiscribe Origin that's waterproof and has a speaker. So the waterproof part I do get, and I think it's definitely useful, but I think it would have been more useful to have it on a smaller format, to have a waterproof thing, because this thing cannot fit in your pocket. And that's my other problem, is the bulkiness, the size of it, the weight of it, the weight distribution, the ergonomics of it. None of it is actually as good as it was on the Mobiscribe Origin. So you get the waterproof thing, sure, but it's not really a portable device, even though it's technically a 7.8-inch. It's one of the largest 7.8-inch devices that I've seen. So the portability aspect is like, already shaky. And then I'm really puzzled by this speaker here, because sure, you have a speaker and it can pling and ding, but there's no platform for audio. I mean, to begin with, there's no audio platform here that you can use. So what's it for? So my main question is, like, why did they actually focus so much and invest obviously a lot of money to redesign the whole thing and to design it into a waterproof, speaker-enabled 7.8-inch Mobiscribe Origin? Why wouldn't have they invested and focused on something else that would make this one kind of stand out a bit more? And in the process, you lose the SD card, which is one thing that a lot of people actually loved and wanted from the Mobiscribe Origin. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure about this device. Maybe I'm just missing the point, right, of the waterproofness and the speaker and thing. I'm sure that there's going to be people who are going to go like, yeah, this is exactly what I'm looking for, and excellent, then great, then fantastic. Then this is the device for you. It's going to make you happy, and it's going to be great if and when they fix all the bugs, because bugs are not going to make anyone happy at all. But then you will remain with the oversized, waterproof, speaker-enabled Mobiscribe Origin. Is that really what we need? Is that something that we wanted in the first place? I know that I didn't. Did you? Please do let me know in the comments down below. Well, okay, that's it for the Mobiscribe Wave Black and White Edition. I have pre-ordered the color version as well, so once that ships out, I will be able to bring you an in-depth review as well, and then make a comparison, then see how these do stack against each other. I hope that you liked the video, and I hope that you found it interesting and useful. If you did, please like and subscribe and ding the notification bell in the description below to get notified when new videos come out on my deep guide. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you in the next video. Bye.